Everybody, time for a coffee break. Today I'm going to talk on power and how to take yours back. Anthropologists define power in a myriad of different ways, but Anthony Giddens understands it broadly as transformative capacity. So what does that actually mean? It means the ability to exercise your will, right? So we have various forms of power and what that looks like in society. One of which is interpersonal power, as discussed by Eric Wolf, which an individual has the ability to impose their will onto other people. Authority is the formal social use of power, so it's how we use it in approved social settings. Bourdieu and Foucault, if you're familiar with either, discuss how it's easier to control the mind than the bodies. So they talk about how it's easier to persuade individuals or manipulate individuals, some by using surveillance techniques, monitoring, recording. We can all remember the days of remote work, perhaps during the pandemic or at other times, and how in some spaces there's been a shift back to the office, right? And so that space allows people, places, and things to monitor us, right? Make sure that we're seated where we're supposed to be and that we can be watched. Hegemony is when subordinates comply with domination and accept the ruler's values and the naturalness of this hierarchical domination. So it's almost like it's normalized, and so we don't really do anything about it. And so this is how elites are able to curb resistance to their power and their privileged position. I saw a meme this week that was really impactful, and it said, if you've ever imagined what you would do during slavery, during the Holocaust, or during the Civil Rights Movement, you're doing it now. And of course I had read that while doom scrolling endlessly on the couch on Instagram. And so that struck me really hard during that moment, because I was like, wow, so I'm actually giving purchasing power to these billionaires as they make money off of advertisements, right? Because the more people that are on social media for a longer time, the more money that they can make off of us, right? Not to mention that our time and our attention is money, right? Because time is almost the only thing that we cannot buy, right? We try really hard to buy it back in different ways, but once a moment has passed, it's gone. And life is really short, so our attention and where we put it is really impactful in life. So I thought about, how do I want to remember this moment, and how do I want to remember kind of the way that I act and what I do? I've talked to several people this week, and many say it feels so big, it's all out of our control. What can we really do? Right? Everyone's worried about their own lives, their own families, their own day-to-day, which is a privileged space, right? Or not, depending, right? So having access to transformative capacity is a privilege, right? So some people aren't able to speak out. Some people are in positions of fear, right? Or of economic insecurity, where they can't afford to take any actions. But even in those spaces, we can take actions about our mind and things that we are able to control. I was watching Bill Maher last week, and he said something really great. He said, this time he's not going to control my mind, or he's not going to take my mind, something to that effect. And that was really impactful, because we often kind of follow I listen on Pod Save America. They said we're not going to follow every wormhole, right? We often follow every kind of path, and we go down these spaces, and sometimes they take us to really dark places of despair. And not only that, but they isolate us from our community, right? On purpose, right? Because if we're home and we're depressed and we're isolated, and we're sad or we're angry, and we're not connecting with others, that's actually what they want, right? Because it works in their interest. We're often seeking to zone out, whether it's on social media, whether it's on, Amazon or other apps, just kind of like buying things, like using different addiction habits to gain that dopamine response in our brain, right? And I'm not blaming anyone who does these things, of course, because our society today is, in modernity, a really hard one to navigate and be in as a person. As an anthropologist, I know we're moving further away from actually being human, right? We sit almost all day, every day, and we're often isolated from our communities. So in that, yeah. Foucault actually talks exactly about that when he talks about separating and isolating people, when in his research in prisons. Frantz Fanon actually wrote about the same thing. He says that they isolate the oppressed rather than bringing them together. He talks about how, the colonizer is able to divide and conquer, right? So we're taught that people that are different than us, we shouldn't communicate with them, or we don't have shared experiences with them, right? And so we often divide ourselves even more because the system above wants us to continue to do so that we're easily manipulated. It's that joining together, it's that community. There's also something called the hidden transcript, which is a critique of power structure and resistance. It's like what we can do beneath the surface, in those small acts of resistance. And different cultures have examples of this hidden transcript. I'm from New Orleans originally, so we have Mardi Gras, and in Mardi Gras we often see during carnivals across the globe, actually, you can see these like juxtaposed activities or acts, right? Acts of resistance, and the way that people celebrate, or the political commentary that's involved, and some of the music, some of the themes, etc. I'm also a researcher of the Brazilian martial art of capoeira, which was created by enslaved people to disguise their fighting so that they could revolt against those that were imprisoning them. So that they could gain their freedom. So that's another way. But I think oftentimes we're taught to fear, which that freeze moment causes us to inaction, right? Causes us to not act, right? We just want to, it's the fight, flight, or freeze that we've all heard of. Also, freezing feels safe, right? And so I don't blame anybody, right? I know I have to take pauses often. Sometimes it's a whole day of just like that freeze state, just to feel safe, right? It's like, the metaphor of the warrior when he goes to battle, or she goes to battle, gets injured. You have to kind of come and protect yourself to heal, but so that you can go back out into the world and fight. So it's totally okay to pause. But it's important to decide when you're going to go back out and take action, and when you're going to go back out and take your power back. Doing something different actually rewires your brain. It shifts the neural pathways. And so the more that you do different things, the more they become, they shift those neural pathways and become normal in your brain. So I challenge you to think about your time, think about your life, and think about your joy, right? Because I think that's one thing that we shouldn't let the system do, is to rob us of our joy or to rob us of our community. I told my students this week, kindness is resistance. So even when you feel like things are out of your control, or that you don't really have any power, I encourage you to go out into your community and be kind to others, because that's another thing that they don't want us to do, right? They want us to continue to separate ourselves. So I think being kind to others is one of these stronger moments of the hidden critique as well. So I would love to hear from you too. I would love to hear how you want to perhaps inspire others. If you want to type in the comments, what's one small act of resistance that you can do to take your power back and to empower your communities. So I'll see you next time.